I'm Steve Jones from Redgate Software, and I want to show you how you can use Flyway teams to deploy some changes from one SQL Server database to another. So you can see here I've got the Flyway Teams edition of Flyway Desktop running. I've got a state-based project which I've created in another video, but here this is actually going to check one of my databases and see if there are any changes that aren't yet in version control on disk. So there's no changes here. If you look, you can see I've got this Flyway State 1 dev database. If I come over here, you can see it's there. Let's actually make a change. So I'll create a table like I would in normal development. I'll do this test, which is about all I do. Maybe I'd insert some data, maybe not, but I want to now see if this works with the application. Let's deploy it to QA. So I could run that change inside of Management Studio on another database, but a better way is to run it through a pipeline, run my static code analysis checks, any other checks I have, make sure that it's correct. So in Flyway Desktop, what I want to do is capture this code and save it to the project. And you can see here is the code that I wrote roughly. It's a little cleaned up because we apply some of our formatting to it, but I'll update the schema model and I've got it. I've also got a change here in version control, probably with a few other changes as well, which I could commit, but I can just deploy this quickly and see if QA works. So here I'll pick my QA database. Flyway Desktop will now look at that schema model on disk. It will look at the target database and it'll say, hey, this table does not exist over there, which let me show you that's true. So here in my QA database, if I run this, I get an error. Instead, let's deploy this change. So I'll pick this change. And of course, it will generate me a deployment script and I'll get to see this script. Here it is. Now I can execute a transaction, no transaction, copy to clipboard. I'm just going to deploy this change. So once I deploy this change, which is fairly quickly, if I come back over to Management Studio and run this, it works. So that worked well. But let's do something else. Let's imagine that I didn't have a primary key there, so I actually want the primary key. So we'll go ahead and add that code in there. And then let's do one more thing. So I'm going to create a view as order details. And we're just going to say, probably don't need an as there, but star from, what was that? Order details, right? So we'll do that and we could actually interjoin table orders on the order ID is equal to the order ID, right? So that we'll just create this view. Can't do the same name, but let's just do the orders. Excellent. So I've got this now view, and if I were to select from that, let's come up here and say select the orders. That works. Of course, in QA, that does not work because it's not a valid object. So let's make those changes. So if I come back over to my schema model and I close this and refresh it, Flyway Teams will detect that I've made multiple changes in my database here. Now, you can see it's got both of these changes. There's my change to the table where I add the constraint. There's that view. I'm going to save both these to the project. And then once this is done, I can choose to deploy them. Now, I can choose to deploy one of those changes or both of those changes. It's really up to me. So if I were to pick just one and say deploy, what I'll get is a script to just deploy that constraint to order details here. If I pick both of them and I say deploy, what I'll actually get is the option to deploy all of those changes. So you can see here, we're creating the view and we're altering the table at once. I'm going to deploy both of those because why not? I certainly need those changes for my project to work. If I come back over here to QA, you now see that I have that view working as well. So hopefully this has given you an idea of what you can accomplish in Flyway Desktop with Flyway Teams. So give it a try, download an evaluation, and let us show you how we can speed up your database development with Redgate tools. I'm Steve Jones for Redgate Software.